Over Christmas. A few weeks ago, we reported on a shortage of 95 unleaded due to a glitch in the process that upgrades the fuel. A few sporadic problems are still being reported. Well, to discuss, we're joined now by Reggie Sibiya, the CEO of the Fuel Retailers Association. Good evening to you, Reggie.
Good evening, Francis.
What is happening right now?
Look, we have been experiencing challenges, in fact, for the past 4 weeks. The problem started really with the unplanned shutdown at the SABC in Durban, and that mainly affected
the refinery.
Yes, that's the joint venture between BP
supplying
and
to
Shell.
the whole country or just that area?
Well, they supply the Durban. There's a lot of obviously accommodation agreements between different oil companies, but some of the product needs to come via the pipeline to the inland region to supplement that demand. So that then affected mainly the BP and the Shell network. And immediately after that as well, we had the problem with the delay in the shipment of reformate, an element that is used to convert ULP 93 to ULP 95. So I think it's just been a combination of those factors. And as you know, even when the shutdown comes back to normality, there's always issues of backlog, and that's where actually the planning becomes most critical, and that's why you'll find that there's differences in the way how different oil companies have actually managed the situation.
Is that problem with the conversion from 93 to 95, is it fixed? So we're just dealing with the backlog now?
We're dealing with the backlog, but our concern is that for some unknown reasons, every year without fail, when we are approaching the festive season, we tend to have these problems. And then we start dealing with the backlogs. And by the time we're trying to catch up, and then the festive season is actually on our backs. And we are actually very concerned that unless this backlog issue is actually addressed, in particular by BP and Shell, where we are getting a lot of noise as well as engine recently, we're then going to actually overlap into the festive season. And it's going to just be a vicious cycle to actually try and deal with the problem.
Okay, a lot of things raised here. BP, Shell, how big is the problem now? How many of your members, who are the retailers, are reporting shortages at the moment?
Well, in the past week or so, I mean, it was actually very huge. So we have to admit that, you know, there is some improvements, and we believe that most of the improvements now, of the challenges really now, will be with the logistics arrangements. And as you know, the challenge that we have, even when we get the product in our industry, is that we've got a fixed fleet. So we are not able to actually increase our fleet to actually deal with the demand. But in terms of the provinces as well, the most noise is coming from the Gauteng region, followed by KZN. And then
at this very moment, how many? Roughly? Well,
every day there is retailers reporting. In our sample of the FRA membership would say, you know, last week we were at about 30%, probably now reduced to about 15%. So, but we are still having a problem.
So it was 1 in 3 and down. Very quickly, one of my colleagues went to a petrol station and was told that there's a truck driver strike. There was nothing in that petrol station. We can't verify that with any of the trade unions. Have you heard anything about that?
There's not. I can confirm there is no truck driver strike that we have.
So maybe you have to come up with reasons.
I think the issue again is this issue of there's not enough trucks to actually meet the demand that is facing us.
All right, and then you spoke about this shortage that happens every year. Now, you represent the retailers, not the suppliers. Is there a conspiracy here?
Well, one will never take that away in terms of, although there's no evidence, you know, one will always ask the question why this time of the year, you know, has it got anything to do with trying to improve people's balance sheets in terms of, you know, year ends? You never stop having those questions. At the same time, you can't take away the reality that you never plan for some of these things. But for a small retailer, this is where the issue is. An oil company can afford to have shortages to 10% of its network, because people will still go to another service station to make up. But a small retailer, when they don't get a load of fuel, it's a problem because the margins are very tight. You know, the business is dependent on volume. It's quite crippling. We've had service stations, for example, that have had not received product for 3 days over the weekend from Friday till about Monday. And for those service stations, it's actually quite dramatic for them. So when we as motorists might not see the impact because there's a choice of where to go when you don't get a product. But for a small retailer, it is actually quite a serious impact. And that's why we actually plea for the oil companies to prioritize this.
All right, thank you for coming in, and we'll follow the situation, Reggie Sibiya. And we know that the price of fuel is going to come down because the price of Brent crude oil has been low. It dropped to below $77 per barrel today, ahead of that meeting of OPEC tomorrow. That reflects the wide expectation that there will be no major cut to supplies. Let's take a look at your main financial indicators, starting with oil and other commodities.